Turns out that cleaning the pulleys for my power steering belt temporarily solved my problem, but the problem is I'm getting some antifreeze leakage that I think is coming from the top of the radiator right beneath this. It's in the core, but it's right underneath that inlet. And the fan is pulling it and blowing it back here and getting that belt wet. It doesn't seem to be affecting the AC belts and pulleys much, but it's definitely getting this wet. And I was having wetness show up on the battery cable here and on the lower radiator hose over here. There was a lot of wetness in here. This was wet on the fuel filter and fuel line down there. Yeah, so currently I'm draining the radiator. You can hear that. And I'll be pulling the radiator and making a repair to it today. Okay, so you can see here where I had a major leak here somewhere that was running down, and you can see this is all wet down here. It was staying wet. So I'm going to have to see if I can find that and fix it. This is my setup for finding radiator leaks. I filled a kid's pool with water deep enough to cover the radiator, and I put this fitting that I've dummied up on the lower hose. It's got a Schrader valve on it so I can pump air pressure to it. Put this one on the upper hose, and it's got a pressure gauge on it so I can see if it's holding pressure. That's just for fun. Mostly I'm looking for air bubbles in the radiator itself. There's my air pump, and you can see that I have taken a piece of fuel line and put it on the transmission cooler fittings to keep that from getting a lot of water in it while I do this. So I'm going to set it up. Okay, so I have hooked this all up. You can see I've got the one with the gauge here on the outlet top hose, where the top hose would go. One with my Schrader valve, where the bottom radiator hose would go. Hooked up to my air pump. And I pumped it up and checked it. When it hits about 16 pounds, the cap releases. I get bubbles right here, which is what should happen. But I'm not getting any bubbles anywhere in the radiator. I can't see any air bubbles leaking from a leak in the core of the radiator anywhere. And I was expecting to see one right in here somewhere, because I had that wet streak that stays right below there. So I don't know if maybe my top radiator hose was a little bit loose, but I'm almost 100% sure that's not the case, because I checked it and there was no wetness right up underneath that neck. There was only wetness on the core. Maybe, I'm pretty sure I do have a leak there, because I've seen that stay wet pretty much all the time. So I don't know if it's because it's cold and the cold water has caused the copper or brass core to contract and it's closed up the leak and I'm having trouble getting it to leak right now, or what's going on. But I don't have any major leaks anywhere. My air pump's not the greatest in the world, I can tell you that. So you see I start getting bubbles right about the time that hits 16. And then it drops to about 15. So I don't know, my cap might be a little bit weak. But it for sure stops bubbling by the time I get to about 13. It's still bubbling at 14 right now. My cap might be a little bit weak, but I still don't think that's where my leak's coming from, because anything blowing from that cap, it wasn't wet here. And I have an overflow bottle that all goes into. I don't know. I guess since I can't get it to leak, I'll put it back on the car and just watch it and look closer with it on the car and see if I can determine where my leak is. I finally found one little place leaking, and it's the only place I can find leaking. And it's coming from right where that end tube goes into the bottom of the top tank. You can see there's a little bit of a mineral buildup, calcium, I don't know, and I flaked some of that off, and it's coming from there. Okay, so right there's the hole. I used this little scratcher thing in there to clean that up and to dig out all the corrosion that was right there. Also used this little screwdriver here. If I back out, you get a better feel of what I'm talking about. Those two little guys. And there's a hole. That hole right there. And it was hissing and blowing. It was clogged with corrosion. I cleaned all that off. Now I'm going to patch it with JB Quick Weld, which is my favorite way to do this. I've tried soldering in the past, but it's easy to cause more leaks than you fix when you're soldering on an old radiator. The seams on the tubes want to come loose and everything else. So JB Quick Weld holds it real nice, and it cures or sets in 6 minutes. Cures in 5 to 6 hours, I think it said. So I'm going to mix some of that up and put it on there. I mixed some up and threw it on there. We'll see how it goes. Should work just fine. I've had good luck with it in the past. Okay, it's the next day. My JB Weld is fully set, fully cured. I aired up with my setup. I pressured up the radiator to 16 psi and squirted some soapy water on my repair, and I see no bubbles anywhere. So I'm in good shape. I'm going to put it back in the car. It's looking pretty good to me. We'll see how it goes.